Imagine if Michael Jordan was scared of missing. He would have never taken a shot. Imagine if Steve Jobs was afraid of people not liking his product. There would be no iPhone. So ask yourself this: do you want to be a person who fears failure, or do you want to be a person who loves success? Which one? Because you're gonna have to pick today. And I'll tell you one thing: one is a failure and one is a success. And if you love success, there is nothing that can stop you. All those negative things people say will mean nothing. They're gonna talk about how only 1% make it to the top. Big deal. Wanna know something else? Only 1% stick with that fitness program long enough to see results. Only 1% of nerds stick with that video game long enough to get good at it. Only 1% of relationships stick it out to the end. That doesn't mean you have a 1% chance. It just means you can't behave like the 99%. You'll have to do something better than giving up a month from now. Those are just numbers. You want to talk about numbers? Take a look around you and take a good look around you. Are you like 99% of the people around you? If you are, then you're in the wrong video, my friend. You have to love success just as much, because that's what's gonna allow you to get up and go for it. Being scared to fail won't do anything. In fact, when you love success and you start going for it, guess what happens? You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail 10 times, 100 times, maybe even 1,000 times. But that's okay. Failure isn't permanent. Falling isn't permanent. You get right back up and keep going. And this time, you're gonna be stronger, wiser, and you'll be more driven than ever. And for every 10 failures, you'll land one success. You have to love success so much that you're willing to fail 10 times before you can succeed once. That's how a winner does it.
You know, entrepreneurship is not something you can teach. People either have it or they don't, which is just the ability to come in and see opportunities where they don't exist. But so the question around how do you find the gap, it's typically around three things. It's you got to find something people are willing to pay for, that they need now, and they have the money to pay for it. The minute you tick those three boxes, you're in business. So it doesn't matter what it is. You could be selling water, you could be selling ice cream, you could be doing anything. As the minute you understand those three things, you effectively have found a gap in the market, and you can start servicing that market.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you do know. Now, I mean, you were part of this Dragon's Den program.
Yes.
Identifying successful entrepreneurs,
yes,
and investing in those businesses. So, you know, how do you know when somebody is a successful entrepreneur? Obviously, they're characters, they're traits that you're looking for in people.
Yeah. So typically, for me, I look for three things. First thing I look for is somebody who's failed before. So I'd never back my money or put my money in somebody who hasn't tried something and hasn't failed. Because if you haven't failed, the theory of failure, you know, entrepreneurship is interesting. It's a lot like swimming. So if I gave you a textbook on how to swim and you read it for 3 years, and then I took you and chucked you in the ocean, you'd sink. Because swimming isn't a theory thing, it's a practice thing. You have to do it to know how to do it. So the first thing I'd say is it's somebody who's failed. I love people who failed because they've proven they've tried something and that they know what's on the other side of not succeeding, which is this failure thing. The second is somebody who believes in themselves even when there's ridiculous odds to suggest it's not going to work. You know, I always say entrepreneurs are crazy. You have to be crazy to be an entrepreneur. You got to believe you're going to make money month end, which often you're not. You got to believe you can compete with big companies, which often you can't. You got to believe you can reach all your customers, which often you won't. And you have to believe you can do so cheaply and cost effectively and make a profit, which in the early days you probably won't do. If you don't believe those four things, you're not going to succeed as an entrepreneur. So you've absolutely got to be certifiable, absolutely crazy. And then the third thing is just people who are passionate. Like, you got to love what you do. Because I remember in the early days, the only thing that fed me was my passion. Like, there was no money at the end of the month. In fact, there was too much month at the end of the money. So you just got to be passionate. You got to love what you do. But entrepreneurship is not a race thing. You're either going to do it or you're not. Let me put it to you this way. Nobody has ever shown me favor in business because I was black. I was in business because I was in business. The fact that I was black then became an added advantage. So if you want to be in business because you're black, odds are you're not going to survive it. Because at the end of the month, the debit order doesn't ask you, are you black or white, so am I debiting your account or not debiting it? At the end of the month, your customer doesn't go, are you black or white, so am I paying you today or at the end of 30 days? They're going to pay you by their payment terms. So, you asked the question around why was that the investment complexion? It's typically because we have a very big problem in this country around developing real black entrepreneurs. But I mean real entrepreneurs. Not the guy who registers a company, gets a tax clearance certificate, opens a bank account, then goes and starts applying, then goes and starts filling in database registration forms to wait for somebody to say, supply me. That's not entrepreneurship. That's being a businessman. Those are not the same things. So we don't have that. What we also don't have, and the other thing we've done is we've taken, in the main, very talented black people and have done two things to them. Gave them very high-paying jobs in corporate, so there's no incentives to start a business, because I can go get an education and get a good job in corporate and live comfortably. Or, and this is the worst thing we did, is we then said, well, here's BEE transactions, so you can take 26% of a company you played no role in building, and tomorrow you can buy a Range Rover, just like that. So the minute you distort the reward risk system, which is what entrepreneurship is, I take a risk, in future I'm going to get a reward. The minute you distort it, people then don't flock to this thing called entrepreneurship. I spend a lot of time in Kenya, and I've often said, I will fund a Kenyan entrepreneur over South African yesterday. Because the Kenyans, boy, are in this thing for the long haul. Like when they build a business, they're building this business not for today or for tomorrow, they're building it for their children 3 generations from now. And that's what we're not getting right, right? I keep saying this to people, like, there's no way in the world where the Jewish community is in wholesale poor. Nowhere on planet Earth will you ever find a poor Jewish community. It doesn't happen. And it's not because Jewish people come from another planet or they're celestial beings. It's because they simply have understood over generations the institution of building a business. So the father starts making cookies, he leaves the cookies business to his son, and the son makes cookies and then he opens a grocery business. Now they make cookies and they have a grocery business. And then the other son comes and he opens a hardware store. So 3-4 generations down, you've got 4-5 generations of money that's been circulated in the system and they've taught each other business.